What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with the one, the only Fitty Trent. What's going on, Fitty Trent? We're back for another Puck It Up podcast. Let the fans of the Bottom Line View know what's going on in the life of Fitty Trent.
Oh, life is going absolutely great. I mean, the Bottom Line View is my life right now. I'm loving being on this channel. You guys are doing awesome. You're helping us out greatly. I'm loving being here. This is literally the best point of my life, Mitch. It's just awesome to be here talking about the NHL on a great Sunday night. It's late. It's like the latest that we've ever done the Puck It Up podcast.
Yeah,
that's just because we're so busy.
Squeaking it in here. We're cutting it close, Trent. But we're doing our best. But at least we have like all the news from the entire week. Basically, we cannot basically miss any news because we are doing this on a Sunday night. So we can basically miss no news. And we'll have a fresh slate of games starting, games of the week starting Monday on. So definitely this is the latest we've ever done a Puck It Up podcast, but it will be the greatest. Let's start off. This is episode number 16. Of course, we give you the great numbers in hockey every single episode. Last week was episode 15, which was highlighted by the great Danny Heatley. This week, Fitty Trent, who are you going with? Number 16.
I mean, it's not hard to think about it. If you know me, I'm a Canucks fan. There's only one number 16 in Canucks history that has ever mattered to anyone in the world. That is Trevor Linden, one of the best captains, if not the best captain that the Canucks have ever had. His number's retired, and rightfully so. An absolute legend in all the minds and hearts and souls of all the Canucks fans, and even just like Canada fans, because Linden, he was around the league. A lot of people respected him. He was a great guy. And yeah, number 16, Trevor Linden for me, it has to be.
For me, I have my number 16 in the back of my head. It was between maybe Brett Hull, but I'm going to go with Bobby Clarke of the Philadelphia Flyers. And you guys know I'm a Penguins fan, but I respect the hell out of Bobby Clarke. Tough guy, brought a different style to the NHL. Not only was he a gritty player, but a lot of people forget how great he was of a goal scorer. He put up a ton of points back in the day. He won a couple Hart trophies. He was just the staple of Philadelphia. And he's the exact player that when you think of the Philadelphia Flyers, that's like the first player that really, it's basically the picture beside of the definition of what the team is supposed to be. It's Bobby Clarke. So I picked my number 16 being the legendary Flyer, Bobby Clarke. Gotta give a hand, to those great legends in the NHL every single time. Next week will be 17. We'll see where we go on that one. But the great number 16s, Trevor Linden and Bobby Clarke, and many, many more. All right, Fitty Trent, how do we start every single episode? We started with the hot news. And of course, we'll get into the news real quick. Also, just want to tease you guys. We will have some debates coming up. The big debate of the evening will be, should the NHL playoff format change? What should be changed about it? We've talked about this numerous times on the podcast, but we've never really dove into it. And we're going to get deep into it in a topic conversation later. So if you want to see that, stick around, listen to Fitty Trent's great news, and then we'll get to the games of the week and the hot topics of the day, and the big one being the NHL playoff format. Fitty Trent, give us the news.
All right, we're going to be starting off with the Dallas Stars as they sign forward Curtis McKenzie to a one-year contract worth $700,000 and Adam Cracknell to also a one-year contract worth $675,000. Honestly, this is a good move, I find, for Dallas. Both these guys have been really good bottom six depth guys for the Dallas Stars this year. Sadly, their season has not played out the way that they wanted it to, but nevertheless, these guys are producing. They're still on the younger side, and overall, I think it's a pretty good signing, especially for less than $1 million. You can get some good depth, less than $1 million here in the NHL. That's perfectly done.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Trent. I think like these two guys are lower end kind of forwards for them. And like you said, I think the big thing here, 1-year contracts, less than $1 million. So they have a lot of versatility with what they could do with these guys. They could rather keep them around till next year, have them play on their fourth line, be it in a depth role, maybe possibly send them the other way to the AHL, whatever it is, or they could trade them maybe in a small deal because of their flexibility with their contract. So I think this is a smart signing for the Stars.
That's a good point there, Mitch. Another depth bottom six kind of signing the Canucks made. I didn't even see this. Mitch had to tell me about it. Drew Shore, the legendary Drew Shore, is coming to the Canucks to play with them for the rest of the season. He's only played in the NHL this year, but he scored 48 points in the last 50 games. So he's done well. He's 26 years old. Used to be a second-round pick. Honestly, as a Canuck fan, I like this. Drew Shore, he's going to be a good bottom six guy for the Canucks. That's going to be like top six, playoff like time. Might as well give him the assistant captaincy now. But overall, good signing by the Canucks.
Yeah, this just basically says to me, Trent, this is another player that they saw in the free agency. Maybe they seen a little bit from him before. He's been in Calgary. They kind of know the player already. Bring him in, see how he does for the Canucks. They're just kind of grabbing players out of free agency and trying to see if they stick against the wall. They have numerous guys that we saw last night when we were there live at the game against the Penguins. You saw a few guys that weren't even on this team at a month ago. So they're just picking up random guys to see who could help their team in the future. I think that's wise, and I like the move.
Yeah, I think you said it well, bringing in new guys. And the Penguins actually brought up an old face that had not played for them in a long, long time for a big game against Winnipeg. Yes, Tommy Steal Sleeves Sestito, the legend, the GOAT, the best enforcer in the NHL today. They brought him up, and what does he do? He fights, literally his first shift on the ice. The next shift, he absolutely kills Tobias Enstrom by nailing him into the boards. He's actually part of the boards now. We can't get him back, and because of that, he has been suspended 4 games. Mitch, you're a Penguins fan. This has got to be sad to see. Sestito, he's one of the best enforcers of the game. You're definitely your best enforcer of all time there in Pittsburgh. Sad to see him being suspended for 4 games, but he will be back soon.
Yeah, the Steal Sleeves, bro. He's great. He's just great to add to the lineup. He's so much fun to watch as a Penguins fan because he is so much different from anybody on the team. Like, you have Connor Sheary and you have Tommy Steal Sleeves Sestito. And it's especially great when he's playing with the GOAT Matt Cullen. We didn't get to see that very recently, but Tommy the Steal Sleeves, I love watching him add him to the team every once in a while. He's good just to have around. It's good always to have a guy like Tom Sestito, like, in all seriousness, because you can bring him up for a game, or you can have him on your fourth line occasionally. Not every game, but occasionally when you need to play teams like the Winnipegs of the world and like those bigger teams in the West, and potentially a game that's going to be more physical. You can bring him in, have him fight a guy or two, have him back check a guy or two, set a statement across the game. I'm not for injuring people, but if you're going to have a guy to go out there and just lay a crushing hit or smack a guy around with the fisticuffs, that's what Tommy Steal Sleeves is about, and that's why I love him. He is suspended for 4 games, and I did think the hit was pretty bad. I don't know if it was worth 4 games, but it was pretty bad. So he just did his job, and the Penguins, that's what they asked him to do, so that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, as you said it, that's Sestito's job, is to hit people, to do that. Then again, Kevin Shattenkirk of the Washington Capitals, his job is not to do that. But he did that. He did that just last night, as he suspended 2 games for charging in the game against LA, I believe. He completely just ran after the guy and hit him super hard. And this is just a young little guy. And honestly, I don't know what was in Kevin Shattenkirk, but I don't think that the Capitals got him for his enforcer ability when they traded for him at the deadline. So this is kind of worrying to see about Kevin Shattenkirk.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, because I don't know if he's ever been suspended before. I could be wrong, but I don't remember him being suspended for a lengthy period of time in St. Louis. But now that he's in Washington, there could be a variety of reasons why this happened. Maybe it was just luck, and it was bad luck, and it just happened. Maybe it was because he was pressing hard and he was trying to do something extra because he's on this new team and he hasn't been playing too well. So maybe he's trying to press hard and he's trying to make a big hit or, make a good pass and get a good shot on goal, something, to spark his confidence. But this is definitely not good for the team. Sure, it's only 2 games without Kevin Shattenkirk, and obviously they can win without him because they're a great team and they have a lot of depth. But I think it's concerning with Kevin Shattenkirk's role going forward, especially because you paid so much for this guy going to the playoffs. I mean, they'll probably be fine and all, but I think that is a little concerning if you're looking at this from the perspective of a person that you looked at this guy to be that missing piece on your team to win the cup, and maybe he isn't that missing piece. Maybe it gives more troubles to the team than positives, Trent.
Yeah, he definitely could give more troubles, especially if he's going to go out and be suspended. Now, those 2 players were the only 2 players that got suspended, but they weren't the only 2 players that got punished this past week in the NHL. As Calgary forward Johnny Gaudreau and LA defenseman Jake Muezzin, Mitch's favorite defenseman on LA, both were fined $2,000 for diving. Now, I didn't see either of the dives, but it seems like the NHL has been cracking down a lot harder on diving in the NHL now, more than they ever have in the past.
Bro, you got to stop calling Jake Muezzin my favorite defenseman on LA. People are going to start believing this stuff.
What, you don't want a Jake Muezzin jersey?
Do you understand what you're doing here, Trent?
I'm poking the bear, Mitch.
I'm a huge Drew Doughty fan, so obviously Jake Muezzin is not my favorite defenseman on LA, Trent. Stop putting this in the minds of our great Puck It Up podcasters. Stop doing it. All right? Anyways, Johnny Gaudreau, get your head out of your ass for diving. Stop doing it.
There you go. I mean, enough said. I mean, LA got punished. Calgary got punished.
Stupid Flames players. That's an intended shot at Kev.
Make sure that you all tell them that, I mean, LA got punished. Calgary got punished. Both these teams share something. Both these teams have had the pleasure of having Olli Jokinen be dressed in their jersey. And Olli Jokinen decided to retire from the NHL. Absolute great center. Always was really good in the faceoff dot. Whether you put him on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th line when he got really old, he'd still be able to get it done. Still a great penalty killer. Just a good, classy guy. I mean, he never really wanted to go out and hurt anyone. 750 points. 1,231 games played. Really good guy, a great Finnish player.
Yeah, this is a guy that I feel like gets a bad rep because he was paid too much money a couple times in his career. And I've heard, the likes of Kevol and these other Flames fanatics that have been talking about Olli Jokinen in a negative fashion. This guy was a very good player, at times a first liner in the NHL, and he could score, he could pass the puck. He was a playmaker, and he was a quiet leader, and I think that he was a very good player. Now, for people to criticize him because he got his moolah, he got his money, he made his dough, Trent, I don't think that's you shouldn't criticize a guy for doing that because it is his job at the end of the day. I mean, you're not going to just take less money because you don't think you can live up to the contract, bro.
Yeah. I mean, that's very well said. As we said, he was a classy guy, just like Joe Thornton is a very classy guy there in San Jose and just in the NHL in general. And he scored his 1,000th career assist just this past week. And that's becoming only the 13th player in NHL history to reach that feat. And yet, you look at the top 100 players in NHL, the top 100 NHL players, Joe Thornton didn't make the list there, Mitch. I know that you're the most upset about that out of all of us. Mitch, please tell me, why was he left out on this such great list? Joe Thornton, what a legend.
I told you, Trent. Why is Joe Thornton not on the list? So first there's Evgeny Malkin, who I was pissed off, right? And then there's Joe Thornton, who's 13th all time, Trent. What's going on here? What? Joe Thornton never gets enough respect. The guy's he's been an Olympic champion. The guy's been a great Art Ross winner. The guy's been arguably the best passer in the NHL for freaking 15 years, and you won't put this guy in your stupid top 100. I don't get it, man. He is better than a lot of the players on the list. He definitely deserves to be there. A big man, Big Joe. Joe has always been, one of my secret favorite players. I wish him the best at the end of his career, and he's only going to add on to his point totals because he's still playing at a very high level for a guy at his age.
No, I think you summed it up perfectly there, Mitch. Very proven player on very proven teams, unlike the Golden Knights, who have added their first player to their roster. They're very unproven since they only have one player in their entire system now, but they've added Reed Duke to their team. Now, Duke was drafted in the 6th round by Minnesota back in 2014. Really kind of struggled in the minors, only started to get it done this season. But overall, I find that he might become a depth guy at best, if not just probably like an AHL top 6. But nevertheless, I mean, Vegas is finally starting to do some moves, which is really interesting because the expansion draft's coming up. We keep on talking about Vegas, but they finally made their first move, and I find that will be actually a positive move in their standpoint. Duke will be okay.
Trent?
Yep.
Who is Reed Duke?
I just told you, drafted in the 6th round by Minnesota 2014 draft. Were you not listening, Mitch? I told you.
Do you think the music wizard cares about a person named Reed Duke?
Yes, probably not. Mitch, you know how slow today, the news has been this week. I had to get everything I could, all right?
You know what the real news is? The real news is that the Golden Knights will televise their expansion draft live for the world to see, and the Bottom Line View will be doing a live broadcast as that goes down. I made that up right now. That's not it. I didn't even make that. Ask Trent. I just made that up.
He just made that up. Mitch, I have a question. Could I be a part of it? Could I join? That's fair. Can I join the chat? Can I be in the chat? Can I watch it?
Yeah, I guess.
Yes. All right. Thank you for you there, Mitch. I'll go back to some real news. Some real news. How about Henrik Lundqvist? Do you like Henrik Lundqvist, the King?
The King.
Is that a little bit better for you?
That's a lot better, Trent.
Well, he's going to be missing 2 to 3 weeks now with a muscle strain, and I understand that Lundqvist, he's been off and on this season so far. Antti Raanta has been absolutely amazing for you guys currently in the Rangers jersey. So maybe this is some okay news for you. Maybe it's not as big as I'm trying to make it sound like, but nevertheless, you want Henrik Lundqvist to be at full health during the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I really don't see the Rangers going that far. I think Henrik Lundqvist is that wild card that you absolutely need to be healthy at 100%. So I'm a little bit scared that we're almost at the playoffs and he's injured now.
Yeah, but this is exactly what me, you, Kev were talking about. Numerous recaps, especially about the Penguins. I mean, these teams nowadays, if you want to make it far in the playoffs, you need 2 goalies. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where the Rangers' depth at that position might come true and might be realized now. This is Ranta's opportunity to, prove to the franchise that he is the future and that they may be able to let go of Lundqvist very soon. So interesting. But, he is injured. I hope he gets back soon. Obviously, I love the King. Always respected him. I wish he comes back very soon because I want to see him playing in the playoffs. But, I just think this goes back to NHL teams, especially the elite ones that are looking to win the cup, need 2 goalies, Trent.
Yeah, they need 2 goalies. They need really good forward depth. They really need good defensive depth. And speaking of good forward and defensive depth, the Penguins been doing absolutely great with tons and tons of injuries. And you've added one to the list there, Mitch, with your forward, Carl Hagelin. He's out at least 4 weeks with a lower body injury. Now, Hagelin, he was so instrumental in that playoff run last year on the HBK line, arguably the best line that you guys had last year. And it was the kind of thing where it's kind of scary to see that Hagelin's out, but you guys have been winning. So, Mitch, are you worried that this injury is really going to hurt you guys?
It won't hurt us in the regular season, Trent, because I think we've seen with the Penguins, they're currently on a 5-game winning streak. They're currently ripping the Pacific Division up, the weakest division in the NHL. And They are also just playing really good hockey, and I think that they have probably the best forward depth in the NHL. Now, they have a lot of injuries. But Carl Hagelin is certainly a great player, and I love Carl Hagelin to death, but I don't think they need him right now. I just hope that he comes back healthy, and comes back fast, and he comes back rested for the playoffs, because that's when Pittsburgh will need everybody at their highest point to win them another cup and go back-to-back. But I think the Penguins will be fine during this 4-week stretch without him.
Yeah, well, the Penguins have had a lot of unlucky periods of getting so many injuries, especially recently. Just like the Dallas Stars' unluckiness continues, as they are now missing another player out for the rest of the season. Last week, we were talking about how Patrick Sharp was injured for the rest of the season, and that's probably why he wasn't traded. Now Antoine Roussel is missing the rest of the season due to a hand injury, and it's the kind of thing where I guess it doesn't matter that much because, Dallas, they're not making the playoffs this year anyway. They just signed those 2 other guys to some depth. But still, Antoine Roussel, he's a good middle six guy, and you're still going to miss him on your team whatsoever. I mean, he's right now the best, guy who was born in France in the NHL right now. That's why I'm saying he's better than Bellemare in Philadelphia.
Oh, I heard Bellemare is the worst player in the league this year.
Well, I mean, he's the second best French player in the league right now. So
Maybe.
It's just Roussel and Bellemare. So, I mean, that's all you have to go with. But honestly, unluckiness continues. Poor Dallas. What's happening? What's in their water? It's like when Pittsburgh was getting the mumps every single 2 days, all their players. What's in the water with Dallas that are making them miss every single player out for the rest of the season?
I don't know what is in their water, bro. I don't know. We got to check that out. But it's Dallas. They're not in the playoff hunt. I think this is another, let me say it and try not to be mean, blessing in disguise.
Just leaving it at that. Another team that's been very unlucky this year has been the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Music Wizard is not going to be happy to hear that 3 more of their centers have been injured in Tyler Johnson. Yes. Can
I ask you who Tyler Johnson is?
Listen, my computer is really bad with the autocorrect, and I have no idea who Tyler Johnson is, but, that's how my computer spelled it. It's okay. I can read it. I'm the guy who says the news, but it's fine. We're getting through it. So Tyler Johnson, a.k.a. Tyler Johnson, Vladimir Nemestankinov, and Cedric Paquette are all out for the next couple weeks with different injuries. And you're already missing Stamkos. Who do you have left at center? I mean, I know Tampa Bay wasn't going to make the playoffs to begin with, but they're just totally beat up now. And that just has to really discourage them. And guess what? You might get a really high draft pick now. Look on the bright side.
Do I sound like I'm on helium?
No.
Okay, good. Because for some reason that sound sounded weird. But anyways, I think that those 3 guys injured day to day. Obviously, Tampa Bay was trying to make a run into the playoffs. Music Wizard was rooting them on. But with these 3 guys injured, definitely that's going to slow their progress, and it doesn't look like they're going to make it in. That's definitely not good. And the struggles continue for Tampa Bay. I think you can pretty much chalk this season up as a defeat, as a unlucky sequence of events, and just move on to next year, Tampa Bay fans.
Yeah, that's good advice there, Mitch. I have one more piece of news that you're not going to believe what it is. It's one more piece of news.
Okay, what is it?
A trade happened after the deadline. I'm not talking a couple hours. I'm not talking about a couple minutes. I'm talking about 5 days after the trade deadline. Another trade went through.
What?
Ottawa has picked up defenseman Brandon Gormley, who's going to be a depth defenseman from New Jersey for future considerations. Because this trade happened after the deadline, Gormley won't be able to play in the playoffs. Now, since when are you allowed to make trades after the deadline? I know that they've already put rules that, he can't play in the playoffs, but Brandon Gormley wasn't going to play in the playoffs to begin with. He's not that good of a defenseman to play in the playoffs. So, what's the stipulation here? Why are you allowed to make trades after the deadline? I think that's a fair evaluation.
Okay, honestly though, what are you gonna Why isn't Ottawa being fined or something?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
I know other leagues would fine you or like maybe, say that your best player, you suspend him 4 games or, take your first round draft pick away or something like
that. They
that.
didn't deflate the pucks there, Mitch. All right. You can calm down over there.
That is all.
That's all the news that I came up with. Mitch helped me out to find a few things. So that's kind of all that we have left in the news, I believe, unless something came up.
Okay, this is all I want to say.
Yep.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Who is Reed Duke?
Now that's what we call a callback in comedy there, Mitch. That's a really good question.
All right, let's go on to the games of the week, Vinny. Trent, we have a couple games of the week. There aren't too many this week. Obviously, the game of the week for us, I guess, like in terms of watching wise, last week was the one that we were at, Penguins Canucks. There was also a few other good games. Did any there that stuck out to you last week that you really enjoyed?
I mean, I really like the Flames and Canadiens game as well. It was really nice to see the Flames actually be dominant for the first time in like their history. And the Canadiens actually looked like the Canucks on a good day, because they were playing so awful. But besides that, there were some good games in the week.
All right. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to next week. So Trent, I know you have a couple there and I know they're not as good as mine. So we always save the best for last.
That's
you can
fair.
go ahead and go first.
All right, so we are going to start off with the shittiest game, and the shittiest game, aka the game of the week for me, is going to be tomorrow as the Canucks face the Boston Bruins. This is the repeat of the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. No one else will care about this except for me. I find that the Canucks are not skilled enough. They're too injured. They're too beaten up. And even if they were completely healthy, they're still not skilled enough to face the Boston Bruins. So I find that this is going to be a complete blowout for Boston. The Canucks will go without a goal again, just like they did in Pittsburgh. And it will be a 6-0 loss for the Canucks and a 6-0 win for Boston.
6-0, Trent? You have no faith in your team, bro.
I mean, I have faith. I just don't see them doing well.
Okay, next.
All right, moving on to next is actually an okay game. The Blackhawks versus the Canadiens. Both these teams have been doing really well this season. The Canadiens are a little bit more surprising than the Blackhawks. Everyone kind of figured that the Blackhawks would be doing really well. But this could possibly, maybe, if the stars align correctly, be the Stanley Cup Final. I don't see that really happening. But nevertheless, two really good teams. I mean, you got two great Russians on either side. You got Radulov for the Canadiens. You got Anisimov and Panarin for the Blackhawks. Two good goaltenders that are Canadian kids, Crawford versus Price. It's going to be intense. It's going to be a battle, but I think that the Blackhawks will squeak this game out 3-2 in overtime. I redeemed myself.
I'll give you that one, Trent. I'll give you that one. I think that's a good prediction as well. So those are Fitty Trent's games of the week. Okay, so my games of the week this week are the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Calgary Flames. Of course, I need to include the Pittsburgh Penguins in there. Now, why is this a game of the week, you ask? Well, first off, the Penguins, the Flames, have two of the three biggest winning streaks in the NHL. The Flames, 9-game winning streak. Penguins, 5-game winning streak. And there are two teams that are going to be in the playoff hunt. Also, I want to see how the Calgary Flames, and I want to see if they're elite. I want to see if they can play a top playoff caliber team, even with the injuries that the Penguins do have. And, of course, we are recapping this game live on the Bottom Line View. Myself, Trent, and the one, the only, Kevin Olenek, the Calgary Flames fan, very biased Calgary Flames fan, that me and him will be screaming at each other on the recap. So that is something that you do not want to miss. That's why that is a game of the week, Trent. Now that is a game of the week. For me, my second game is the Minnesota Wild and the Washington Capitals. The two top teams in each conference go head-to-head, West versus East. The best in the West versus the Beast in the East. And it's going to be, just a fun game to watch. Minnesota just lost today to Chicago. So let's see if they can rebound later in the week against an equally good team in the Capitals. And the Wild have impressed me mostly throughout the season. And the Capitals are a team that's kind of sliding a little bit. They don't want to let the Penguins catch up. So I think that's going to be a good game.
Perfectly said there, Mitch. I couldn't say it betterly myself.
If I had to give you a prediction, Trent, because I know you like the predictions, I will give you, for the first game, it's Penguins-Flames. I will give you 3-2 for the Penguins. I will say that it goes to overtime, and that in overtime, none other than Norris himself, Justin Schultz, gets the game-winning goal.
That's a great prediction there, Mitch. I mean, Norris has been lighting up the NHL recently.
And in the next game, the Minnesota Wild and the Washington Capitals, I will say that the Wild take it to the Capitals 4-3 in a close one. I'm not sure who will score the game-winning goal. Maybe I'll go with Eric Stahl.
Ooh, reviving his career down there in Minnesota. Doing well.
Yes, he is. So those are the games of the week from the Bottom Line View. We move on to the topics of the day. So the first one, before we get to the big heated exchange about the NHL Playoff Format, Fiddy Trent, I have a question about three teams in particular. And these are three teams that are in the playoff hunt: the Flames, the Senators, and the Penguins. And now, what do you think amongst them they have in common?
Amongst them right now, I have to say depth. Both teams are really suffering on the injury core, but both teams are finding ways to bring up some good players to fill those lines and to still get it done.
Trent, now that is partly correct, but you missed the main goal of the three teams. The three teams have winning streaks.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
The Flames, 9 games. The Senators, 6 games. And the Penguins, 5 games. And we did winning streaks over 5 games just to make it, a little bit better. Trent, now the full question is, what do you make of the recent win streaks by the Flames, Senators, and Penguins? Which team do you think has the most impressive win streak? And which team do you think is the most dangerous the way they're playing right now?
I mean, for impressiveness alone, I actually have to go with the Ottawa Senators. Honestly, the Senators have really shocked me this year. I thought the Senators would be maybe in the mix for a wild card position, but they've gone above and beyond this year. They are currently the first team in the Atlantic Division. I find that those trades for Victor Stahlberg, Alex Burrows, Brandon Gormley even, they've really been helping them out. They've really been paying off. Craig Anderson's playing the best hockey of his career. And honestly, they're the most shocking and definitely the most impressive so far.
All right. And who's the team that you think is the most dangerous because of this win streak? And not necessarily the best team, but maybe the team that, dangerous to the others in the playoffs.
I have to say that the most dangerous team right now is probably the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, you look at how many injuries they have and how many wins that they have, and that's frightening. That's frightening to think about a healthy Penguin squad. You think about a healthy Penguin squad, it's unstoppable. Right now, they're very beat up, but they're still finding a way to get it done. But
all right.
Right after that, I mean, you have to look at the Flames, too. The Flames are also doing really well. They have the best streak at 9 games. Keith Tkachuk, not Keith Tkachuk. Why do I always call him Keith? Matthew Tkachuk is playing the best hockey of any rookie right now. I mean, Brian Elliott's finally turning around. All these teams are doing really well. None of them should be taken with a grain of salt.
Trent, you sounded like Kevel when you said that Matthew Tkachuk was the best rookie.
I'm not saying he's the best rookie overall. I'm saying he's playing as the best rookie right now.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, I'll give you that. I'll give you and Kevel that. I think those were 2 good debates, and I think I need to challenge that a little bit.
Go ahead.
So, for me, what do I make of the most recent win streaks by the Flames, Senators, and Penguins? That is the question. The team that I'm most impressed with, I mean, the Senators have been really impressive, but I got to go with the Calgary Flames. Like you said, 9-game win streak, a team that has kind of come out of nowhere, even more than the Senators. I looked at the Senators and I said, okay, they've kind of been good all year. The Flames were bad, and then they got mediocre, and then they just got on a roll, and it seems like all their young pieces are fitting in place. Their coaching is working. Their rhythm is working. Their goaltending specifically is helping them a ton, and that was the thing that was holding them back. I think the Flames are a dangerous team in the playoffs, but I think that they're the most impressive team with the most impressive streak right now. I would say that second is the Penguins because of their injury combination with their win streak. That is very impressive. And I think that the team that people are kind of not looking out for is the Senators. Like you said, it's a team that's kind of snuck under the radar. And I didn't even know until a couple of days ago, the Senators were number one in their division. A lot of people haven't been looking at them. Montreal has been getting a lot of hype. The Bruins have been getting a lot of hype. Even the Maple Leafs. But the Senators are first in that division, and they've been really impressive. Now, I think the most dangerous team, obviously, in the playoffs is the Penguins. They're the best, most complete team. But I think both of those teams could potentially scare other teams in the first round. Now, do I think that they'll win? I don't think the Flames will get out of the first round, but I could see the Senators getting out of the first round with their current positioning.
I mean, very well said there, Mitch. I'd like to add to your argument right now.
Yep.
At the very beginning of the season, before the season started, Mitch and I did a Pocket Up podcast where we predicted what the standings would look like. Mitch, right now, the Calgary Flames are second place in the Pacific Division, which is what you predicted. So, Mitch, I had to give my hand to you.
And what did you do to me, Trent? You did this.
I did. I really did. You know who I thought was going to be second place in the Pacific Division?
Who?
The Arizona Coyotes. You know where they are? The second worst team in the NHL right now. I deserve that, Mitch. I deserve that last.
No problem. I got to keep taking shots at you until it happens. So
hey, that's why I'm here.
Okay, so let's get into our heated debate. This is what the people have been waiting for. This is what they've been waiting for. This is the money segment. So how should the NHL playoff format be changed, Trent? I know that there's a lot of different ways, including some absolutely ridiculous ways that I've seen. But what is the most logical, best way in your mind that you think the NHL could change this format? Because we've expressed our displeasure with the current format of the division format. How do you think they need to change it, Trent?
I mean, it all depends on how you want to see the NHL happen. I mean, if you want to see it go back to the old way, that's fine. When there's an Eastern Conference and there's a Western Conference. For me personally, I might be alone here, but I'd like there to be no conferences whatsoever, and the best team faces the worst or the 16th seeded team, and so on and so forth, just so that we can see at the end the two best teams in the NHL, whether they're both the Eastern Conference or they're both the Western Conference. I mean, we look at like years past, and we even look at this year. How great would it be to have Alexander Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby both facing off for the Stanley Cup, not the Eastern Conference final, but the Stanley Cup. I think that would be amazing to see a 7-game series when that's on the line. I mean, I'd love to see just the best teams, because that's how they did it way back in the old NHL. It was not conference-based. It was the best NHL teams. Granted, that was over 100 years ago, but you got so many great teams, even if they were in the same division, just facing off against each other. The best players versus the best players. That's the way I want to see it.
That's a very good one. I like that one, Trent. And that's easily a way that I could go. But to differentiate from you, I think that they need to go back to the old way that I saw it in my childhood. 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, each conference. Screw these division standings. I don't want the Capitals and Penguins playing in the second round. I want them playing in the Eastern Conference. I want the Blackhawks and the Wild playing in the Western Conference. I don't want that happening right away. So for me, it's strict as this. I think that it's the best when you have Eastern and Western Conference, because first off, in those playoff seedings, I understand what you mean with the two top teams playing at the end, but I think it makes for the most interesting playoffs when there's rivalries at stake in the early rounds. Potentially in the early rounds when you have 1 to 16, you could have like the Penguins playing like, let's say, I don't know, like the Predators. I don't know. They're like a random team in the Western Conference, right? Like it could be, I don't know, one of the lower teams in the West, whatever. The Flames, for instance. There is no attachment. There is no reason for fans to really get invested. But when they watch the Flames and the Oilers play in the first round, that is interesting. That could happen. Or it could be, you know, even the Wild and the Oilers is a little bit more interesting because at least they have a little bit more attachment to each other because they play more consistently in the regular season. I understand what you mean, but I like the 1 to 8 format that creates the best teams at the end of the day facing off in the Stanley Cup from each conference. I also think that there is a little bit of that conference versus conference thing at the end of the day as well. So that's how I would do it, Trent.
I mean, I think that was very well said there, Mitch. I mean, I think basically what we're saying is get rid of this division crap. You know, you can keep with the conferences if you want, but just get rid of the divisions and stop making the divisions worth something. But then again, that's just our thoughts. We have other people that I'm sure that are watching that have different thoughts.
Yeah, if you guys have thoughts on this division madness in the NHL playoff format, let us know. What do you guys think they should do? Do you guys think that they should go 1 to 16? Do you guys think that they should go 1 to 8 and 1 to 8? Or do you guys think that they should do it some different way? I've actually heard one person say that they should bring teams from Europe into the NHL. And, you know, they should do some different type of things that have never been seen before. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section. We would appreciate it. This has been the Puck It Up Podcast, episode number 16 on Sunday, March the 12th. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, Gronk spike the like button, slap shot the like button, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you share the video and the podcast with your friends. To tell the hockey fans around you about the podcast. We'd really appreciate it. Any other things to add before we leave, Trent?
I think you pretty much covered it all there, Mitch. I mean, we got new videos coming out every single day. They're not necessarily hockey, but they are all sports related. We got wrestling, we got football, we got basketball. Of course, we got hockey. We might get water polo soon if we can find a water polo person. We got a tons of stuff coming on the way, a lot of exciting stuff, lots of live streams happening soon. According, I hear in the works. We're doing one for the expansion draft for sure now. So, I mean, keep watching the Bottom Line View. You don't know what's going to happen next.
Yes, tune in to the live recaps. Thanks, guys, for watching, and peace out.